Is that socialism?
No,
Is that all it
be
takes?
that would be some aspect of socialization, especially if it's like earned by the workers that have some level of collective bargaining.
It just seems so bureaucratic. I don't understand the workplace in your
Bureaucracy
world.
still is very much at the foundation of a bourgeois state as well. It's just that we
dude,
don't think
I'm
about
talking like this is bureaucracy on bureaucracy on bureaucracy.
No, I don't
understand your workworkplace.
I'll tell you
if
this
that's
much.
not good enough, then what is? I
Here.
don't understand.
There is, I think it's called People's Republic of Walmart. It's a really good book. And so like
The title.
there was a genuine problem in the USSR with how to deal with crops and agriculture. And central planning, unfortunately, had limitations at the time because we did not have the computational power. One of the, ironically, like steps in the right direction was actually coming from Chile, which then got their own 9/11 50 years ago, but we won't get into that because, you know, socialism bad. But there wasn't enough computational power to implement centralized planning at that time effectively, and it led to plenty of issues, right? So ironically, nowadays we have centralized planning inside of Walmart, inside of Amazon, and these companies are generating a ton of revenue that they could cut their workers into. Maybe they would be much smaller.
This is a really horrible I haven't actually read that book, but every time I hear someone talk about it or read someone write about it, this is kind of the explanation they give. So either everyone is misunderstanding that book or it's a shit book. I really can't tell. But this idea basically is that if you have they're confusing a command economy, like a centrally planned economy, with planning that happens in a business. These are insanely different things, though. Let's explain. So if we've got like an economy, right? You've got a lot of inputs and outputs. You've got raw materials. You would have I don't know, fucking agriculture. You would have housing, even because Soviet Union mostly government controlled housing, production of housing. You would have consumer goods. You would even probably have infrastructure, to be honest, like, because so you've got all these different things. And if you're a centrally planned economy, you are in charge of all of this. So if you allocate a certain amount of raw materials to go to housing, you are also necessarily taking away from the potential of raw materials that you can invest in these other things. So this balance is just like, it's an insanely, some would say, impossible balancing act, which is why you get so many inefficiencies. If there are any changes in consumer demand or supplies, then you're going to have a really hard time responding to it quickly. So this is why we just read an article earlier about how Soviet housing distribution was really, really flawed, and how the problem was that you had these huge waiting lists and you had people on waiting lists for like 10, 20 years. They had to redefine homelessness to call it like a personal defect instead, so that they could just kind of ship them away or move the problem elsewhere. And a lot of people actually had to live in communes. A lot of people had to live in like barracks or just like shared spaces where there were like multiple families living in just the space of a very small like just a couple of rooms. So yeah, it's very inefficient, and that's what, like Hasan said, it's a very big problem with the Soviet Union. To act as if Walmart, and I think the People's Republic of Walmart argument is that they actually engage in a lot of planning. They are bigger. Walmart's actually bigger than some countries. It's a very big company. But the problem is they're confusing the size of a business or an economy, like the scale in terms of its wealth, but they're ignoring the depth, because Walmart is massive, but it doesn't do all these things. Actually, the only thing Walmart really does is this. And even then, it's not that they produce consumer goods. Walmart doesn't actually produce any consumer goods. Even Walmart's own brand is produced by someone else. Walmart just puts the label on it. So it's really just the very, very, very end of this, of like very intricate like supply web, where they just do the selling of goods. That's it. They just put their stuff on the shelf that's all produced by someone else, and then they put it on there and sell it. That's it. They're one very, very simple part of the supply chain. Now, what they do is not like there is complicated and all that, but compared to involving all these variables, it's like it's night and day. They're completely different things. This is all being done by independent companies. So when Walmart, like if you go into Walmart, most of the things there are produced by someone else. And all the goods there that are produced by other people involve them purchasing materials. Like if you're Coca-Cola, you have to buy plastic, you have to buy where all the spices are, and they're all produced by other people. And then the materials that those producers who produce the plastic or the spices or whatever else are using materials that they got from someone else. And then they're getting like, I don't know, steel or like coal and all that comes from another company. So like these are all thousands upon maybe even tens of thousands of different companies operating interdependently, but it's not a central plan. A central plan would be all of these things are controlled by one body. And it seems to be the case so far that that's not what Walmart can do. That we don't have the technology and the know-how to do that. That's why the only example they will point to of this being a success was a hypothetical plan from Chile that never got implemented. So like, okay. But it's weird that Hasan is arguing for a centrally planned economy, because I thought he was talking about because central planning. I don't know how you would marry a centrally planned command economy with workplace democracies, because wouldn't that mean there would be quotas or minimum and maximum requirements placed on every business? Would that really be a democracy? Like, or is this just like two different socialisms that he's kind of like smashed together in this discussion, and that we just have this kind of incoherent blob? I've tried to read articles of people talking about how this People's Republic of Walmart thing would work, and everything I see is just a very nebulous hypothetical about computers calculating inputs and outputs. That's it. But again, if it were the case that technology or AI got so sophisticated that you could actually have a centrally planned economy that was more efficient than what we have now and met human need better than what we have now, then yeah, you'd become a fucking tanky tomorrow. Like I would anyway. But it doesn't seem to be the case that that's what happened. That's why the Soviet Union and all these other centrally planned economies were mired with inefficiencies. That's why Walmart, despite its size, basically sticks to one thing. They put goods on the shelf and they sell them. They are a very, very, very small, particular part of the supply chain. They're just big in scale, which is different. So anyway. That's why the People's Republic of Walmart is a dumb proposition. Unless the book is actually different to how everyone explains it and there's something in there, but no. I'm not getting it from this guy, I don't think.
Maybe they would be much smaller.
What's the minimum
size.
that would make it socialist? That's what I'm curious about.
I don't think there's like an exact dollar value, rather than, because you're looking for an exact dollar value, rather than I'm talking about an entirely different way of thinking.
But there's the law. There's a law in a socialist country that says you must do.
I'll give you one example. I'll give you a good example from your life. Right now, you have Cam. Right? Mm-hmm. Cam does.
I don't think you can factor in human tastes and preferences into an AI model given how subjective they are. But that's the point. That's why we don't have centrally planned command economies. That's why the People's Republic of Walmart is a book, and that's what and it'll die there. Yeah, that's all it is. Yeah, and that's why, I don't know, maybe Allende's great plan with the computer system from the 1970s would have solved all of it in Chile, but I'm gonna assume probably not. Okay. Not that I support the fucking coup or whatever. That was horrible, Pinochet and all that shit. But I feel like you're stretching when you just go to like a system that never existed and be like, now that would have been the one. That fucking centrally planned. If they had special technology, and I think Allende even had like outlines for how they wanted to do it, how they wanted to plan their economy. If that existed, why didn't other communist states take it up? Why didn't North Korea take it up? Why didn't the Soviet Union use it on one of their fucking African allies? Or was that really Allende's plan? There's some, like, hang on. So it was called Project Cybersyn, okay? Or Cybers, I don't know how you pronounce that. But yeah, they wanted to do like manage the national economy through some kind of like simulator software operations. But I feel like I don't know if this ever actually got used beyond just planning. Operations room was destroyed. It was abandoned. But I feel like this knowledge would have manifested itself and showed itself somewhere in the world by now. But But this is what they go on. This is their example of the People's Republic of Walmart working, right? It's just this fucking Star Trek command center that never was. The answer would have been here, though. This would have solved the issue of central planning, apparently. The lost computer that made communism work, yeah.
Does wonderful goofs, gaffs, and Photoshop.
Slaps. We love Cam.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Let's
give it up for
that
Cam.
nature.
Let's give it up for
We love
Cam real
Cam.
quick.
Yeah.
I love you guys. I love you guys.
Love you guys.
So technically, if you were interested,
that was good. That was good content. That was a good little bit there. This whole, I do enjoy these conversations. I like it that they're having them. It's like, it's good. It's quite entertaining to watch. Maybe for different reasons than someone like Hasan would say, but yeah. Hasan squirms and gets defensive after being asked a softball question. I think it was this one.
One of the concluding questions we can go into that you, as with a few others, already answered before I even asked them, and making my job extremely difficult here. I'm fucking with you, but that's I guess the biggest fear of what we do, to an extent, at least from my perspective, is that when we create this shit and people consume this shit, does that increase their, anti-capitalist fervor, or does it indirectly placate it? Because, they sat down today, they watched this video, they listened to the stream, they, read that blog article or whatever type of content that you're creating, and that already gives them enough of a feeling, the gut feeling that, for today, I've done, quote unquote, my part for the ideas that I would like to espouse into the world and to manifest and to materialize, etc., etc. So it's kind of a scary question to ask ourselves, because we actively, encourage real life activism, agitation, organization, and so on from one perspective, from one side of the coin, but then from the other side of the coin, similar to literally like bourgeois elections, you feel you only go once every 4 years. You put in that little fucking tablet choice, or the thing, the paper in the box, and it gives you the sense that, I've done my part for my community for the next 4 years. The scary question is, do we, to a certain extent, by creating the stuff that we do, contribute to a very similar problem? And the only, it's not really even a question, because you subjectively can answer this, blah blah blah, but only time will tell if there is any actual material contribution that comes that goes towards the movement, the ideology of our poster making, or if it's quite unintentionally, to an extent, reactionary and shit. Do you get what I mean?
no, I totally understand.
So I think the question itself is actually really good, and you could probably ask it of any political ideology and those creators. It's like, once you have the money, the person speaking was, I think it was Gopnik, it was this guy, wasn't it? Anyway, the question they asked was like, you could say that to anyone, is once you've got the wealth and the resources as a creator, it's like, can you do more than just entertain people and direct them, point them in the right direction, or even organize something yourself? Because you can actually, I'm sure these guys, especially with second thought in there, they can amass more wealth and resources than probably some aspiring political candidates, right? And it's not as if, Hakeem with his fucking Lenin rant Sona and shit. When you think about what Lenin did back in the olden days, with some funding from sympathizers in mostly Germany and America, and basically just sitting in a fucking library in Switzerland, he achieved quite a lot. So what's Hasan got to say?
Understand it. You're saying you're asking if we are also playing a role in sedating the masses,
Exactly.
despite our best efforts to instill class consciousness.
because people think that it is a revolutionary act to consume a piece of content that, you know, or even like read theory, I guess, which would be the more advanced version of this. And I don't know, I would categorize it not even as theory, but as just entertainment, really. Like, I don't ever think about it like that at all. I don't think about like whether or not this is, you know, stopping people from like genuinely engaging in this kind of action, because I don't think that a lot of these people would even know anything about socialism in general if it weren't for someone trying to
like
slowly, I guess I hate this term, but bread pill them, you know? So for me, like I said, it's not that serious in my, like from where I'm standing, I talk about so much dumb shit over the course of 10 hours, depending on what part of the broadcast you're tuning into. Like I'm playing fucking horror games and shit, you know what I mean? Like I don't live my life as though like every single moment and every single point of my output is supposed to be like socialist Jesus, you know?
Of course.
I think that it's important to have.
No one's asking. I hate it when he does this. I hate that. I hate it so much. I feel like there's no way he doesn't realize what he's doing. No one's asking you to be a full-time socialist Jesus. No one's asking you to do that. I don't know why you would make this. If the question from fucking this dude over here was, do you feel like your work is really just placating people, that people watch your stream and then they feel like, well, that's the socialism done for the day. I can just do my uni work, or I can do my job, or I can fucking party or whatever. And he's like, I can't really be expected to be a full-time socialist agitator with my entire life. It's like, that's not what people ask you to do, you fucking asshole. It's the same as like when people say, when people criticize the house or the $1,000 shirts or the fucking private jet flights or whatever the fuck else he does, or the Porsche, and he's like, do you think socialism is a poverty cult? It's like, bro, where's the gradient between poverty and the fucking amount of opulence that you engage in, and the amount of fucking wealth hoarding, and the fact that you don't do shit with your money to further your ideology, like, apart from what, giving to charity, which I'm pretty sure even you would admit is a meme, right? Like, that charity is like not socialism in any way. It's just dumb. It's so, I feel like he knows what he's doing. There's no way that you have to just revert to this straw man. What do you even call it? What would you... It's like if an MP, and I feel like British MPs have done this, right? When an MP gets in trouble for claiming $100 for their fucking breakfast one day, right? In expenses, like an expenses scandal. And the MP says, what do you want me to do? Starve? And I'm like, bro, what? What? Like, fuck it.
Have fun. I certainly have a lot of hedonistic desires that I cave to regularly. That's why I bought a nicer house than what revolutionaries on Twitter thought was appropriate.
Uh-oh.
So I bought a fucking Porsche, and I have the capacity to do so, so I did it. But also because it just makes the limited amount of daily commute that I do more enjoyable. And I think everyone should do things like that if they have the capacity to do so. Ultimately, though, it's just I'm an entertainer. I'm an entertainer first.
Yeah.
I'm not a revolutionary activist. I'm not I'm not a leader in the movement. I just do entertainment. If there is more value in that entertainment for someone that feels like their worldview has changed, and that's great. That's definitely a goal. But ultimately, it's educational entertainment, edutainment.
Absolutely fair enough.
Very, very nicely put.
I do stress it though. I do.
Oh no. Either they don't want to push back on him, or they're just the same. I don't know what any of these guys do to further their cause. Like, especially since I would maybe let these two off, like Hakeem and Yugama, because they're not that big. And at the end of the day, like, you probably do have to make a living, and you have to have like a lot of money to spend to do this. But like with Second Thought there, who has enough who is like has a second channel where he reviews fucking supercars, like a million plus subscribers. I don't like, and I think I know the answer. Okay, here's the answer. The answer to why you're going to see this excuse by Hasan just gobbled up by all three of them is that if these guys are all like Marxist, Leninist, revolutionaries, the fact is what they also are, all three of them, and they'll never admit this, but it's fucking true, is they are capitalist realists. They know full well that their audience and their content is made for the English-speaking world. These are the last places on earth that you are ever going to see a revolution, not least of all a fucking Marxist, Leninist, socialist 20th century Soviet revolution. Like, you're never going to see that in the UK or America. And even if you did, it would be fucking horseshit. Some mob would probably execute all three of them, including Hasan, for like the amount of fucking retarded shit that he says, as well as the fact that back in those days as well, like they fucking deplored opulence. So, they would find some way to execute them for fucking class treachery or bourgeois fucking decadence, or I don't know, some nonsense like that. So at the end of the day, if USSR is not coming back, it's definitely not coming back to the United States or to the United Kingdom or the any other part of the English speaking world. So just, I don't know, just get your, and since you're never going to be satisfied and your audience is never going to be satisfied with any amount of material improvements that can be made within a liberal democracy, then just, I don't know, make your bag and enjoy the ride. That's why they do what they do.
Do stress the importance of doing shit in the real world all the time, because I think that, you know, if your interest in improving your material conditions begins and ends with consuming content, then, you know, you're not going to get anything done, and you're not going to feel the positive impact that you might have on your community or in your own personal life by engaging in these kinds of actions. So that's something that I try to instill in my audience regardless. You know, something I always repeat on my broadcast is that society prospers when old men plant seeds for trees that they will never sit in the shade of, right? I'm sure you guys have utilized this before as well. I think that that is what's important. You're building blocks for a better...
Is this really... So what, you're just planting the seeds of socialism so that after you die or when you get old and retire, then other people will just do the revolution for you. It's so, I don't know, are you trying to be that an analogy for one of the old socialist thinkers like Marx and all that? Because even the old theorists, when people say read theory, what do they mean? Like Marx, Lenin, these people were all activists as well. Like Marx was in the Communist Party. He wrote a fucking manifesto. He competed with other people for that role. You guys do all the work. I'll just keep streaming. Fuck. But yeah, this is why. What was the question earlier? Like, why don't you get bothered by tankies? Because look at them. They're not doing it. They're the least. This is the least threatening force in world history. There's no fucking agitation here. It's all aesthetics. Like, it's all fucking entertainment that there's never going to be any action upon. Yeah, it's what, join the CPUSA. What the fuck do they do? Send each other on fucking holidays to Cuba, like every now and then.
Better future that you may never experience or you may never enjoy the fruits of.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
at the end of the day, it's two things we have to be aware of. The first one is to make sure that at the end of the day, capitalism commodifies everything, including what would be considered to be quote-unquote revolutionary content, which this isn't. This is entertainment, but you know what I mean. Leftist content, in essence, becomes a commodity, regardless of whether we can help it or not. Even if none of it was absolutely monetized, like this was completely done just to have the information out there. In the same way, they would form the same processes behind it. The fact that it would become like, oh, a figure that then has the drama shit behind it. All that. So that's one thing we have to keep in mind. But number two, and I think more importantly, again, not to take it so seriously. If you want to take politics seriously, then you take politics seriously in your real life, day-to-day activities. Otherwise, what you're doing here is just to entertain yourself, number one, kind of to educate yourself.
Bro,
but at the end of the day, the same.
No, exactly. That's the thing. Like okay, here's one thing I'll say. People get so
The other question as well is like, if you're a liberal or if you're a reformist, you can be a socialist and still engage in social reform that improves people's lives. Because at the end of the day, there's a question I've always wanted to ask when Hasan says like, I'm not going to do that because it's not socialism. I'm not going to do that because it's not socialism. Why did you become a socialist? Well, a few reasons. Might be you were upset by inequality. You were upset by the fact that people lack basic necessities and basic things like healthcare and housing and shit like that, or basic access to, I don't know, mental health resources, or like energy costs and all that. Like there are lots of things that make you want to be a socialist, like gross inequality, like, or even I don't know, wars and shit. Well, you can mitigate those things and point the world marginally in the right direction within this system if you want to. If part of you becoming a socialist is that you don't like workers getting fucked by their bosses, invest in a co-op. Boom. Because if we're talking about capitalism and socialism as like not just a binary, I feel like you're improving some of the things that apparently made you a socialist in the first place by doing that. Workplace democracy is preferable from a socialist perspective in every way to a private firm, to a traditionally run corporation. That could be one thing. If you don't like imperialist wars, you can probably find like Stop the War campaigning, or you can support people who are running for Congress who are against the war, like I don't know, your Cornel Wests or your fucking other Democrats who might want to withdraw funding from Ukraine or whatever else these guys would support. You can do all this stuff, but then the answer I would get back from them is like, well, reform is like, they'll either say, well, that's not socialism, or like reform is just like a ratchet effect, right? They'll just say any positive reform will just get paused by the Democrats or undone by the Republicans, which again is like kind of bullshit. We have more workplace democracy in the world than we had 50 years ago. We have more racial equality. We've got more union rights or workers' rights than we had since the Industrial Revolution, like quite a lot more. So yeah, you can make incremental improvements as a left winger. Or I don't even know what the other thing is. They'll probably like, you know, that I can't stop repeating this. It's so fucking funny. That in the Soviet Union, which I know at least a couple of these guys have a lot of sympathy for, actually maybe all of them, that one of their mental health diagnoses was sluggish schizophrenia, one of the symptoms of which was delusions of reformism. So I guess that's what I'm exhibiting here, you know? Where is it? Is this one of those PDFs that doesn't let you do the thing? (2021). There you go. Anti-Soviet thinking and delusions of reformism. Which would mean they have to bite the bullet that there have been no improvements to workers' rights in their neck of the woods since what, like 1720? Okay, dude. Reformism is engaging in reform to the rejection of other means, no? No, you can be a socialist reformist thinking that reform can be a stepping stone towards socialism. Like, kind of the 20th century social democrats, or today you'd be like democratic socialists. But, yeah.
so mad about how much money I make. Or what I'm doing with the money, even though I do a lot of fundraising, I do a lot of donations, even though like I think charity is not the end all be all, obviously, and there's plenty of issues with 501c3s and all that. No need to have that conversation on this podcast of all places. But people get so mad about the amount of money that I make when it is literally voluntary subscriptions. Like, that is my revenue strategy. It's the exact same as like people with Patreons. It's the exact same with people with Substacks. Half the time the people chirping at me are literally people with Substacks. They just don't have, any subscribers. Like, that's the only difference. And so
That's me. All right, wait. I have enough subscribe. Okay, but the question or the original prompt was about whether or not viewers are simply just getting entertained and could be doing and are treating it as the be all end all. Are they not doing? Do people not that they're targeting need to do more to advance their political causes? And somehow that question has got Hasan just going on a little ramble to justify his own financial decisions. Like, how fucking transparent is this? Like, so Hasan, what do you think about the possible fact that your viewers just kind of watch you, they feel sort of satisfied, placated, and then they don't really take any political action in the real world because they lack direction, or they haven't really been pointed in the right way? I can't believe all these people on Twitter who make fun of me for having a house, and like my money from Twitch all comes from voluntary donations. I give money to charity. Like, Hasan, we want to know how to advance socialism. Like, oh god. If you're a liberal, it's easy. If you're a Socdem, it's easy. If you're a democratic socialist, it's easy. You canvass, you vote, you phone bank, you fucking donate to candidates that you want to go forward. Like, yeah. Oh, anyway.
like the way I'm generating income is identical to the way that they are trying to generate income while they're angry. And that's what I try to explain to people regularly. We're like, you don't even need to fucking pay a subscription. Everything is free. Not only is the content free, but the IP in and of itself is free as well. If you want to use it, if you want to fucking watch it, there's like 1,000 fan channels out there that, cut and re-upload this content. Sometimes don't even edit it at all. They just like literally pump it out. And I see a lot of value in that. The reason why I see a lot of value in that is not because like that audience expands and then they come back and watch me and then subscribe to my channel or anything. But my goal always is to get this kind of information in front of as many people as possible. So that's why I do it the way I do it.
I mean, even if you believe in socialism, in most liberal democracies, your short-term strategy would look a lot like Socdems. At a policy level, yeah, and it would also, if you don't like policy, if you don't like engaging electorally, then you would do what, like mutual aid, which is more of an anarchist thing. But you know what? I'm pretty sure like all four of these guys don't even give a fuck about either of those things. Yeah, I just have a feeling. Maybe I'm wrong. I just have a feeling they might be the kind of guys to say that like social democracy doesn't even matter because it's basically just robbing the third world to support welfare in America, which is so dumb. Like fucking, I think it's like less than 1% of America's GDP is like involved in like trade with Africa. It's so low. Like most of Africa's trade is with Europe and China. But
and I think it's probably one of the most ethical ways that you could do it, at least from my perspective. I'm not exploiting anyone. I do work with some people.
He's still just justifying his own
the
status.
Revenue share structure that we have is they're very fond of it, at least. You know what I mean? And but it doesn't really matter.
There's no need for you to explain or to attempt to. I know that's not what you're doing. You're just trying to give context. But like all of us know, we don't owe anybody an explanation in these things.
One of the concluding questions we can go into that you add.
It's the end. Wow. You know what? It almost makes me miss this guy. You know, he was a bit of a cunt. He was openly willing to fucking engage in like lying and whatever, like manipulation and censoring of the truth and all that to get his way, but made a few pretty fucking nasty decisions. But my God, like at least the guy tried, you know? with not that much resource. I think he got some financial support from sympathizers in Europe. I think but like he did most of what, like a lot of what he did was just sitting in a library in Switzerland and just directing people and shit. Like, I don't know. I wonder what he'd think. I really, God, I would just like to bring Lenin back for 5 minutes to like watch his 21st century followers and just leave a few comments, you know? It's one of my favorite Lenin quotes. How do you feel about Che Guevara? I guess same. Like, he made the effort. Like, he did a revolution in Cuba, and then he was like, didn't even fucking put his feet up. He just went to Bolivia and tried to do one there as well. Where is this original letter? I know it's somewhere on Marxist.org, but there's this Canadian historian who I was looking at, I follow on Twitter, and he was talking about one of these letters that Lenin wrote during the Civil War. And I think he's ordering someone to organize mass terror, shoot and deport the hundreds of prostitutes who are making drunkards of the soldiers, former officers and the like. Some people say prostitutes was a euphemism. But yeah. Look at my revolutionaries, bro. A euphemism for what? So I think, I don't know though, because I've heard it from historians that he did actually mean like prostitute who are making drunkards of the soldiers. That makes sense. Like if the soldiers are getting too drunk and fucking about with prostitutes, then he would see that as a distraction. But I think Lenin used to often use sex worker terms for people who were bourgeois or for like traitors or like people who he considered class traitors. I think he used to call them maybe. There's some, I don't know. Can you imagine though? Can you imagine second thought on his little laptop ordering people to organize mass terror to deal with the counter-revolutionary forces of the United States, of which there would be many. There would be quite a lot of that going on. Can you imagine? Imagine these guys up against the fucking knuckle-dragging, libertarian, white supremacist fucking Klan, whatever, how many 3%er mobs, Proud Boys in America.